Hello and welcome to Sea of Nerves, the show that provides the lifeboat on the journey to healing our mind, body, and spirits from chronic disorders. Our practices throughout this podcast will support your own worthiness and love, so you have a whole sea of nerves to be yourself. Throughout this healing journey we're about to embark on together. Welcome, I'm your host, Darian. In today's episode, we'll discuss chaos to reorder and inspiring ways we can find our way back to inner self-love. We'll discuss the ins and outs of our mind, body, and spirit and offer listeners motivational hacks to get you started or keep you evolving on your unique healing path. Before we get started, let's take a few deep breaths together. Let's set an intention and get acquainted with the depth. So let's breathe in and breathe out. Do this a few more times at your pace and pause this recording if needed. In our last episode, we discussed denial in the self, how denial can keep you stuck in the same place, and how as a society we're working backwards, kept in the dark on the literacy of our individual spirits. However, we did conclude with how we can move forward and rebuild. And that's why we're talking about chaos to reorder. We're going to have to take moment by moment with our lives. And there's going to be chaos because that is life. And we're just going to have to keep rebuilding and let go of the structures that once served us. And we can start this by just taking a moment right now and looking around. For me, I see a sun lamp, I see my computer in front of me, I see this podcast mic, I see a mug of my favorite beverage, I see my cup of water, I see books, and all these things show me just right here in this small area I described. I mean, very small. And I have so many things. And I'm very grateful for these things because if I didn't have just these small little things right here in my little area, I wouldn't be able to sit here and speak with you all today. Or I wouldn't have been able to create a space that made me feel safe enough to create this podcast for you today. And it's where I'm leading to needing to rebuild. For so long, I told myself, no, I'm not going to start a podcast yet. I wanted to do this back in 2020, by the way. It's 2023. So 3 years ago, realistically, I told myself I wanted to do this. And it took me 3 years to make a small 4x2 work area. If that's the dimensions. I'm not a dimension expert. I don't know. It just sounded good. So if someone's on here and they're like, that's not even a realistic number, you go ahead, call me out. Because I don't know, but it's a small area, okay? Indulge with me. I can probably get it in one photo of my phone. That's how small it is. Anyway, that's what I'm getting, is it took me so long to just accept, hey, what if I made a small area in my house dedicated to making it about this Sea of Nerves podcast? And like I said, it took me 3 years to make this small space. And I don't even need much. And I'm grateful because I have all these things. You know, they found themselves to me because I desired them, and they found their way, whether I bought them with money that I'm grateful for, or they were gifted to me that I'm grateful for family and friends and other loved ones. And that's just what I'm getting. You don't need much to get started. You don't need much to get started to rebuild that new structure that serves you well. And that's what I had a really hard time with. Going from eating 6 meals a day, working out a couple times a day, to be able to hike during the weekends and have fun with friends during the weekends, and to indulge in meals, to find comfort in laying down and sleeping. And there's a lot of daily life activities I really miss, just simply cleaning our apartment. Just, things you took for granted when you feel awesome and on top of the world. But those awesome on top of the world days are the days we need, because if we didn't have those days, we'd also be going, what would a bad day be like? We wouldn't even know what a bad day would be like. And so the bad and the good is what we have to accept, is that our lives and no one's life is going to be perfect 100% of the time. It's just humanly impossible. And I know you might be thinking, well, Darian, how am I going to rebuild when I can't get out of my house or even my mind? I want you to acknowledge that you do have the strength in you. And I know you have this, and I know you have it. And I hope you know you're worthy of it. You're worthy of those strengths you have. Even if it takes you a moment to recognize what they are, dive into that depth and find those strengths. Just like for my podcast, I know my strength was my voice. I love getting my voice out there. I love chit-chatting, talking. That's what people tell me. I talk too much. So I put it on a podcast. I put my voice somewhere where I could do this. And that's where I know if you can accept those strengths, you can accept the other feelings too. The fears and the anxiousness and the worry. And when those pop up, just like any positive thoughts, you can go, hey, thank you, fear. I appreciate you. I know what you're doing right now. I see you. I see you. And I'm happy you're here. It just doesn't serve me right now. Thank you for being here, but it doesn't serve me. I appreciate you though. And anytime that arises, just trust me on this. Just trust me, okay? And if you're a stranger, that might feel weird to do. How trust you? I don't even know you. Well, you're here listening, so trust in me just a little bit. That when this arises, if you keep telling yourself, you will inevitably tell your brain, thank you for thinking this. Super cool you thought that, but guess what? Don't need you anymore. And it'll only make it better. We'll keep practicing that brain muscle. And I'll be here with you to remind you as well. On each episode, I'll be here to remind you that you're important, you're worthy, you're strong, and you're capable of anything you put your mind to. And guess what? You just took your first step in rebuilding. I know what you might be thinking, but yes, it was not easy. And I want to tell you though, here's the hard part. Now, we have to keep on working on that. It doesn't just stop here in that first step. We have to keep building one block, one brick, one step, whatever you want to use as your value of measurement. We just have to keep doing that one moment at a time. And that's where it's going to get hard, is on the hard days. When you feel you can't make that step. When you feel that maybe you're only capable of 10% that day. Because we're not at 100% all the time. We can't always be 100% of that time. And maybe that day is only 10%. And that's that day that you have to still be willing to tell yourself, I'm only at 10%. That's okay. My body, the diver we've the further we dive into ourselves and the more we can create this awareness, the more we can just go, okay, I'm 10% today. What can I do at 10%? And tell myself I'm worthy, I'm capable, I'm important, even at 10%, even when I'm not at my whole. And that's the hard part. The hard part is getting your brain to keep telling yourself that, because I gotta tell you, it's gonna be the worst part. Your brain is gonna work really hard against you. Not on purpose, just because it's got behaviors it needs to undo. It has to relearn new structures and learn how to build something new that once served you well, but you gotta destroy that structure. Forget about it. Destroy it, forget about it, set it on fire, walk away from it like you're cool, badass, and go, you know what? Just blew up my building, walk away. Yeah, I'm that peaky blinder guy. You know. I hope you know where I'm going with that meme if everyone watches it, because I love that meme when he walks away from that walking building that blows up. I'm like, yeah, I'm that badass inside. That's right. I'm that badass. I know I'm not the only one that thinks that. But that's what I'm trying to say, is on those hard days, when you blow up your building, you have to still walk away with that confidence going, you know what? I trust I'm going to rebuild something new. Completely something new. And like I said, that's the hard part, because your brain's going to work against you. It's going to, we just took this first step together, right? And tomorrow you're like motivated, or today you're motivated, or, you know, you're feeling the motivation for a couple days, and then you're like, oh God, Darian, I'm falling. You're not falling. You're going at a high rate from your motivation, and you got to take a step back, give yourself some rest that you deserve. You don't earn rest, you deserve rest. Your body tells you when it needs it. So just be aware of it and listen to that. And that might be the day you're at 10%. And that might be the day you get back on this podcast and you re-listen to what I just said. You're important, you're worthy, and then boom, you just took that step again. And you just told your brain, hey, I'm at 10%, but not today. Not today we're going to do this. Today we're going to still rebuild. I'm still going to feel badass at 10%, even if I can't get out of my mind, even if I can't get out of my house. Because I've had those days too. And it's funny because I was doing research. You know, actually, my husband told me this first. I shouldn't say I was doing the research first. I got to give credit where credit's due. My husband, super big into Reddit. I am not. So he gives me all the stuff I like. So I get the good stuff out of Reddit. Anyway, so going with where I'm trying to go with this is he shared an article with me about the science of depression and how the chemicals that release, and I'll pull up the article that I found to actually give you the scientific quote on this information, so you don't just think I'm some loony bin giving you some non-statistical quote, but here is what my husband told me. So he read the article on Reddit, which made me do the research, and it said that the depression, when you are in a state of depression, our brains will not reward us for a positive thought. Isn't that crazy? Our brains won't reward us for a positive thought. It will do the opposite. And the statistic of what it's called is dysfunctional reward processing. And this is coming from the National Library of Medicine, and I will include the link in the podcast bio. Anything I reference, I always include the links there. So if you're wanting more on how depression works with our brain, I will include this just so you know. And so dysfunctional reward processing is extremely central to the pathophysiology of depression. Yet its exact manifestation and pathophysiology vary across specific reward-related constructs. So it's what I was just telling you is it's in a more layman's term. It doesn't distribute your brain, the regions that need that motivation, that need that reward processing. Your brain won't give that area its network and its pathways where it's going to allow you to give that, like the dopamine signaling. It won't send it to those areas. So when you're in a state of depression, this dysfunctional reward processing is a huge part of this process. It's a dysfunction in the brain. It's a disorder in the brain. And so it's how we can rewire and rebuild to allow ourselves. And I'm not saying if you're clinically dealing with depression, please still go see medical doctors. I'm not here saying I can heal this. I'm helping you on your healing journey. I'm supplementing this with whatever else you're doing to help you on your healing journey. So just to clear that up, I'm not a medical doctor yet. I'm working on my neuroscience degree, so we're almost there, okay? Give me a few years. But what I'm trying to say is, if this is something you really are dealing with and you haven't seen a doctor, please go see a doctor. I'm only here to facilitate and help you on your journey. I'm the lifeboat on your journey. I didn't construct the lifeboat. I just am on the lifeboat with you. Okay. So please still go make sure you're getting what you need medically wise, holistically wise, both, and add this onto it, add this podcast onto both of those things you're already doing, because that's the idea of what we're doing with this. And so going back to the dysfunctional reward processing and the disorder, we just have to rebuild. We have to rebuild and then make sure our brain knows it can be rewarded. And going back to what I said, that's going to be the hard part. That's going to be the hardest part, is when your brain's at that 10% level going either, here's what I suggest, okay? Accept the feeling and let yourself have a really bad day. And cry it out, let all the feelings come out. Maybe it's more than one day, maybe it's a couple days, maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can allow yourself to have those days, please do so, because the more you can let it out through the body, through the mind, and through the spirit, the better it's going to feel. And so I'm just trying to say, have your bad days. Don't try to disclude your bad days. I'm not trying to say if you have a bad day and you're at 10%, don't force your brain to make itself reward itself. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that you can rewire the structure. Have your bad days, but then after those bad days, go, okay, I got to rewire again. I have to rewire and I have to rebuild. And it's only for your mental health. It's not to change who you are. It's not to fix anything. It's only to help with the chemistry, so that way the dysfunctional reward processing can't keep going. Because the more that gets practice, the more we can't practice on telling ourselves the actual things, the good truth of the things. And it's our gratitude. When I went back saying, I only have this small space, but I'm really grateful for this space. So the more we can practice that gratitude and that muscle consistently, that's where we can change the dysfunctional reward processing. So that way even when we do have a bad day, the depression doesn't get to seep in for too long and keep us stuck. And we don't want to be stuck. And that's why we're bringing that chaos to reorder. Because as I just said, you're going to have to expect those bad days. Those bad days are going to come. The chaos is going to come. So if we can get ahead, know the chaos is going to come. Tell our spirits, hey spirit, we know we're going to have bad days, which is good, because bad days knows we're going to have good days. The dark tells us we're going to get to the light. The dark shows us what the light looks like, and the light shows us what the dark looks like. So that's what we're doing. We're accepting that, you know what? Chaos is a part of my life, but so is reordering. And every day you might have to reorder something. You know, just the other day I realized I'm trying to kind of create a better morning ritual. I don't have a good one right now. I get on my phone right away, which I don't like. There's nothing wrong with me. I just don't like this habit I do. I don't like it because it doesn't start my day right. And it goes into depression a little bit because it can make me depressed. It can pull in some anxiety. I compare myself pretty quickly on social media, which is just something I have to unlearn. I was born into a stigma of comparing. I was from a small town. Comparing is pretty common. It's actually pretty normal and something you actually have to be aware you do. And then you have to unlearn and unlearn and unlearn. And that's where I went from dysfunctional reward processing, because I too was depressed and had anxiety for so many years of my life. At 25 years, I can say I was depressed. Let's be real. And it took me a good 2 years to get out of this. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I still have those days where I fall, and I just accept it. I go, you know what? I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna let myself feel the way I want to feel, because I don't need to perfect anything. I just want my body to feel good. And if it feels good being sad on a bad day, then that's what I'm gonna let it do. But I can tell you, and that's why I asked you to trust me earlier, that with this practice, the muscle practice in your brain will make sure that dysfunctional reward processing doesn't come back. And that's what I'm doing, is just hopefully adding another tool into your lifeboat on how we can move forward. And even if your situation does feel hopeless, acknowledge that you're experiencing that in this moment. But it's just not your truth. It's not your truth, because you're not hopeless. And if you're to say your situation is completely hopeless, you're also saying you're worthless or hopeless. And that's not true. You are. You're worth everything. And everything you desire, you are worthy and capable of it, and you deserve it. And that's why I want to say that's not your truth. And I know it's not your truth because you wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now if it was your truth. And that's why we're going to keep practicing together. And we're in this lifeboat together. And we're going to get through each one of these storms together. And we're going to be grateful for the immediate sunshine we're going to get after each storm. But we're going to be grateful that we're going to know the chaos of the next storm is going to come. And one thing about being on the sea and storms, and if you're like me, I'm super into watching those survivor shows. Me and my husband both are. Like, how did you survive that? We're really into those. So we're taking this from one of those experiences. If you know the storm, it moves you closer and faster to the middle of the ocean, to land, to wherever the ocean decides to take you. It's up to you. But that's what I'm trying to say, is the storms are going to move us closer and faster to the sunshine and into our inner love and truth. It's going to pour on us, but we're going to endure. And it's why I encourage you to dive deep and to be like the water. Flow around, adapt, stay flexible to your situation, and be grateful. And I want to end this with a quote from the author Lao Tzu. He's a Chinese philosopher, so I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong, but his quote is my favorite. The soft and supple will prevail. And it goes back to earlier when I talked about flowing and being adaptable and flowing like water. And that's what water does. It stays flexible, it moves, and yet it's scary, it's intimidating, it's powerful. And that's what you are. That's what you are. And so, in order to keep rebuilding, we're going to have to keep repeating these mantras to ourselves. We're going to have to slow down, respect the reflection, and appreciate what we're reviewing, and acknowledge it's just part of the process. And accepting that we're going to have to keep rebuilding one moment at a time. In our next episode of Sea of Nerves, we will continue discussing tips to help you rebuild your system, even when isolation creeps to the surface. It can keep us trauma and trigger bound to our current situations. So as we continue to ascend further into the depth that is our true selves, this also serves as a gentle reminder when things get too deep, resurface and climb aboard our lifeboat of safety. I'll be with you the entire way. Make sure to tune in next Wednesday for our episode 3. And please share this with a friend who you feel might need this or might need some words of encouragement. And I'd be oh so grateful if you tap that follow button. And until next week, much love, friends. And remember, dear ones, you are strong, powerful, and ultimately, you're a badass.